What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Facade. I'm your host, Gavin J. Gallagher, and on this podcast, I explore the mental and emotional game often playing out subconsciously in your mind and the mind of everyone else in the real estate or property investment market. The key to success in this game is to master your mindset, your behavior, to take control of your thoughts, your emotions, and most importantly, your ego. So here we are starting another episode of the show. Last week I was talking about just the beginning of the year and went into my little trip to Spain, last minute dash, and some of the fun and games that goes around trying to close a deal at Christmas, especially a foreign real estate deal. This week it's going to be a little bit different. I am bringing a good friend of mine on board, but before we go there, I thought, the first thing that came to mind when I started thinking about today's opener of the show was, God, 2020, what a year, but already 2021 is looking even worse. And I'm kind of saying 2020, come back, all is forgiven. We've got the US politics, the kind of train wreck that we saw last week with the Congress getting invaded by all these headbangers. And then yesterday there was the heaviest snowfall in Madrid in over 50 years, and those guys are sitting in sort of like a half a meter of snow in the middle of Madrid, which is usually in the mid 40s degrees Celsius in the summer. And then here in Ireland and across the UK and obviously much of the world really is suffering from COVID-19, and we're in our second proper lockdown. When I mean proper lockdown, I mean schools are closed, everything is closed, everything is shut down, retail is shut down, and all the pubs are closed, and you can't even buy. There was a thing called pints to go, where you could kind of go up and get a pint of whatever you wanted to drink and kind of have it outside the pub. That's all stopped as well because it was creating all these congregations of people. So it has been a pretty rough start to 2021, and having said that, remember, the mindset's everything, and really the difference between you having a good 2021 and a bad 2021 all takes place in the mind and how you're going to deal with it. So I thought I would give you a quick update as well, something that's completely new, and a few of you will probably have heard of it, but there's a new app out there. Now, it's only available on iOS at the moment, so only on Apple iPhones, but it's called Clubhouse, and it is this everyone's raving about it, and it's something that I've just joined yesterday, and I'm now live on it. But it's kind of like a live podcasting app, where now it's only in its beta. It's only a beta version of it, so it's an invite only. You can't just go in and join. You have to be invited. But anyone who wants to join, I'll be happy to invite you. Just let me know. But basically, you go in there and you can actually have live conversations with people. So I was actually on a call earlier with Grant Cardone. I wasn't talking to the guy, but I was listening to him speak. And if anyone else follows Rob Moore, a real estate guy in the UK, Rob was talking as well, and I've been listening. And you can basically put your hand up and you can actually interact and stuff if you've got something to say. And I was invited into one of the calls, but I was actually in the middle of eating lunch, so it wasn't going to be a possible one for me. But I'm thinking to actually do a weekly show on that app, and to make it kind of like an interactive Q&A. So maybe I'll make it a lunchtime thing, or maybe I'll make it a kind of an evening thing. You might actually let me know, if you guys don't mind. Would you message me if you're interested in being a part of this Clubhouse thing? Let me know what would be the best time to have kind of a Q&A interactive session with you guys. Probably be, say, an hour long, and we'll get into anything a little bit like the live Facebooks. But this thing seems to be completely open, so you could actually end up with a much bigger audience asking questions. Another thing before we get into today's guest, I wanted to bring up, and this is kind of a serious thing, is protecting yourself from fraud. And it's just come to light that somebody contacted me during the week, last week, through LinkedIn. And he had a bit of an issue, and I'm actually going to talk about this with our guest today. But he was on to me about this company that I'm a director of, and the company's called Cashel Fund. And it turns out that some scammers have actually gone out and created a website that pretends to be Cashel Fund, which is the business that I'm a part of. And they're out there fundraising for investments, and you can go and invest with Gavin Gallagher, and you can put your money into these great deals, and it's guaranteed return and all this kind of stuff. And it kind of sounds a little bit too good to be true. Often it is too good to be true. So that's something to bear in mind. Anyway, just to make it absolutely crystal clear, I am not out there at the moment doing any kind of fundraising whatsoever. I'm not looking to raise money. I don't have any products out there that are sort of buying or selling or anything like that. So do not be fooled by anybody trying to pretend to be me or to be raising money or whatever. And this poor guy got hoodwinked by these scammers, and he's actually gone and lost over $85,000 US. And he put it into this investment. These guys, he said that they had an English accent, and they sent him a letter, and the letter was on headed paper from the same Cashel Fund. And I'm a director of Cashel Fund, but this was all kind of fake. And anyway, this poor guy has lost a fortune to these scammers, and I'd be doubtful that he'll actually get that money back, because these guys usually, are fairly mobile, and they'll just disappear, and they'll shut up shop, and you won't hear from them again. But anyway, and just so it's all very clear, in the event that I ever did some sort of a crowdfunding with you guys or anything like that, I raised 12 million for a project before, and it was from 27 different investors, and there is a lot of hoops to jump through in order to actually do a fundraising. There's legal agreements, and you have a law firm that sets up an escrow account that holds the money until everything is correct and in place. A lot of the time you're actually in a position to go and view the assets, so you can actually meet me, and I'd bring you and I'd show you the project. That's how I did it before with these people. That we actually traveled to Spain together, and we actually hired a car, and we went and we viewed the project together. This is not something where I put a couple of photographs up on a website and then I sort of say, right guys, just transfer the money to my bank account and you'll be in. That just doesn't happen. It's got to be done through a reputable law firm where your money is carefully kept, and it's all kind of properly documented. So just be aware of that. The reason I'm mentioning it on this particular thing is our guest today is Mr. Jason Graystone, and he's a really good friend of mine based in the UK, but he is actually a guy that suffers from this as well. He has hundreds of people pretending to be him, actually out there creating fake Instagram accounts, and then they contact you and they say, hi, it's Jason, I know you listen to my podcast or this or that, and I'd like you to go and invest with me. And he has people threatening to sue him for taking money, and he has never heard of these people before, and it turns out that they were scammed by somebody. So just thought I wanted to bring it up that this is a real risk these days with especially with COVID, because everyone's moved online. You're not allowed to go and meet people, generally speaking, and so it's very easy to get scammed and hoodwinked. And so just thought I would bring that up. So getting into Jason now. Jason is a really interesting guy, and I wanted to bring him on for a different reason. Normally I bring, real estate professionals or people that have, a really interesting angle on the real estate. And today it's different because Jason is not a real estate investor, and I wanted to bring him on to kind of give you guys a different perspective on wealth creation. And he, it's always a good idea to keep an open mind. And so Jason started from very humble beginnings and he'll explain today himself, but he started on a council flat and went on, became an electrician. But he had this ambition and this drive to be financially independent. And he went out and he taught himself how to trade on the financial markets. And he did all of this, and he's going to go into a lot of that today. And what he's done since is create a course, an online course on how to actually become financially independent yourself. And I'm actually a member of this program, and it's really, really good. I thoroughly recommend it. I'm actually going to put a link to it in the show notes. And rather than spoil all of the great sort of wisdom that Jason is going to sort of impart today, I'll go straight through to it. But just be aware, Jason is quite the influencer himself. He has a podcast of his own called Always Free, and he has more than 50,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel, 18,000 people following on Instagram. So he has quite a great number of people following him, and so he's an interesting guy with some great perspectives. And without further ado, Mr. Jason Graystone. Welcome, Jason. Great to have you on board. How are you doing, mate?
Very well, thanks, Gavin. It's great to catch up again.
It's great to catch up indeed. One of the the listeners will actually be familiar with your name, Jason, because if you go back to episode number 2 of my podcast, I actually played this keynote talk I gave in London. And if you remember, I gave you a shout out at the beginning of the talk because you showed up, and that was actually just about a week or two before lockdown, the first lockdown. So it's been quite.
It was a great talk as well.
Yeah, thanks very much. Well, it's been quite a year, and before we get into lockdown and number 2 and all of the kind of stuff we're going to go into, as I normally start the conversations, I always ask my guest to give us a little backstory, just paint a picture of your story kind of up to now maybe, and give people a little idea of who you are.
Yeah, sure. So growing up, it was just me and my mum until I was about 6. My dad left before I was born. And the reason I always like to mention that is because I always had this kind of really, really early memories of growing up in this kind of council estate with my mum and having really no money, like literally bailiffs knocking on the door for the electricity, and we have to switch all the lights off and pretend we're not home and hide behind the sofa and all that kind of stuff, right? So growing up, obviously my stepdad came into the scene when I was about 6. We still lived on a council estate. He was an electrician, and we were surrounded by lots of kind of diversity of different people on the estate, and they all seemed to have negative views towards money as well. And growing up, I just guess I had a high value on not being like that. I knew that I wanted something different early on in my life, and soon as I had the chance, I started being a bit more innovative in business, in my job, and trying to serve a bit more. I wanted more money, and then I kind of realized that if you use money a certain way that's slightly different to what I was used to growing up, you can actually use it to your advantage, and you can kind of leverage your time, and you actually enjoy money and you appreciate it for what it is. So when I found that out, I found a love for business, entrepreneurship, investing, and really being, very, very clever with my money. And I kind of put a plan together to become financially free, which is something I set out to do when I had my first son, which I wasn't ready for. And then since then, I've kind of, I found myself in a place where I had enough free time to help even more. So I create businesses, and I kind of spend my days teaching the message of financial freedom, which I think is massively important. And I think this year has really exaggerated the importance of that point.
Big time. Yeah. Well, thanks for the intro. And actually, I can remember from our previous conversation, you actually started out with your own business in the construction kind of area. Wasn't that right?
Yeah, I built a business. The first business that I started was when I was 23, and I built a business up about 3-4 million pounds, something like that. It was in the construction industry, and it was intelligent control systems, and BMS, for those of you who know what that is. And I was really passionate about that, but again, I was passionate about changing the way that was delivered. And the thing is, the construction industry, as you know, it's, as we were just talking about, it's a little bit prehistoric. in terms of how it's managed, and that is something that I know lots of entrepreneurs are trying to crack right now. And for me, it was just a massive frustration, because technology moves at 18-month cycles and construction industry's 50-year cycles, and that's a massive clash. And when you're trying to butt heads with someone who wants to value engineer your work to kind of just get the money and get the profit margin, and you're trying to give the user what they want, and you've got to explain at the end why they haven't got what they want. It's I found myself getting a little bit burned out doing that.
You're probably a bit early as well. I mean, the prop tech revolution has come now, but you were trying to do it early, weren't you?
Well, we were creating it. Yeah, we were basically figuring out all of the things that were wrong so that everything could now become seamlessly integrated. And we were trying to integrate it back then, and that was where all the frustration came from. But also, when I was in that business, it was in a phase of my financial freedom journey. So before I started the business, I set out to completely replace my income through passive investments that would pay me a passive income, which wouldn't require my time. So that's what I set out to do. And what I found out was there was only so far I could go by investing my own income and growing my savings and accelerating my savings and all that. I had to actually increase my income. So that's when I started the business. And because I started a business with an objective to get out, I never wanted to stay in that industry. I wanted to get out and be completely free. I didn't treat the business as a normal business. I was basically abusing the revenue. So it was very thin. Although we were pulling in a lot of money, it was a thin, volatile kind of cash flow where we couldn't get the staff we needed. We didn't really have too much leverage. And that come with a lot of stress as well. So like I was desperate to kind of get that, accelerate my own wealth creation journey so I could get out of it. And then towards the end, I become so frustrated that I got into speculation. And that's really that was where I spent about 3 years in a dark place trying to nail that down and manage a business and manage a family and everything else that was going on, and lose hair and
so you were burning the candle at both ends.
Definitely. I would come home at like 5, 6, see my family. 10 o'clock I would start my second journey till 2 a.m. in the morning, every Saturday in Costa Coffee, Sunday half day in Costa Coffee, just testing charts. And it was a 3-year journey.
Education.
Man. And it was a 1.5 year education of losing money, figuring out what doesn't work, and then a 1.5 year journey kind of building up consistency and becoming profitable consistently. And that was a deep self-discovery process, but we got there in the end. And then it was a 3-year, essentially a 3.5 year income replacement, and then I just ditched the business. So
right, okay.
it was I was in a place. I got into the place where, I didn't need loads of money, but what I had was I was bringing in enough passively and semi-passively. My trading didn't take too much time, but I could live and cover my living costs with that income. And it was immediately an eye-opener, because I thought, now I've got so much time. I almost felt like I had to go. I almost felt like I wasn't worthy at that point. I felt like, I would find myself just on my laptop, just feeling like I was at work, because I'd spent so many years working, and at that point I didn't need to. And
it's retirement.
I found it's kind of a retirement, but I realized that retirement isn't a thing. It's you never want to just switch off and that's it. Like humans just don't want to do that. You want to grow, and you want to experience things, and you want to be fulfilled, right? So I had all this time, and then I realized that I could actually teach people stuff, and I'd let people watch me trade for free, and I was kind of getting involved with all these forums and putting my name out there a little bit. And then I realized that was a scammy industry, and there were some changes that I became passionate about making in that industry. So that's pretty much where I am today.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, that's exactly, I thought it would be great to speak to you, because a lot of our listeners are young guys kind of trying to get on the property ladder. And I get quite a few questions on how do you, recommend getting started, and how do you put together, the initial, capital that you need to put, say, a deposit down on a property or something? And you've kind of described exactly that experience in yourself, that basically working day and night, on a separate kind of venture in order to kind of figure that one out. So have you got any suggestions on ways to go about, saving up that nest egg that people need to get started?
Yeah, I was talking about this on my podcast today, actually, and the way that a lot of people feel like, I think sometimes people just, it's not thinking outside the box. They just don't take it back to basics. And what I always start with is there's only one way to get money, and that is from other humans, right? Because we're the only people that use money. And there's two ways to get it. You either provide a service to them and value to them, whether you're in a job or whether you've got your own business, or you beat them at a sport or a skill, using a skill like trading or boxing or golf or whatever it is. And so you've got a positive sum where there's a win-win, and a zero sum where there's a win-lose, which you've both agreed to take part in. And when you understand that, you can see that the easiest way is to serve people, right? Because a skill is going to take up so much of your time to learn. And if you're already struggling to save a deposit, it means that you're not in a position where you're earning enough money, right? So, or you're not controlling your lifestyle costs to the right degree. You're spending way more than you earn. So the first port of call would be to think, how can I increase my service? How can I be more of service to people? Because it doesn't cost anything to do that. You can go and get another job, or you can just look at your business and go, right, how can we give massive value here? How can we really invest in this business to provide more value to people? And things with social media and all the rest of it now, I mean, it's I always say, it's like, it's almost guaranteed that you can create more income now, because all you've got to do is consistently show up and do something for someone, and there's, without a shadow of a doubt, every single person on YouTube right now who's been doing it consistently every day and every week has done well. The numbers just go up and up and up. They never drop. So there's that. And then that would be my first port of call. If you're looking to learn a skill, if you're looking to learn to trade or invest and grow your money that way, the thing is, it's going to require a lot of time and effort, because you're learning a skill. Tiger Woods didn't spend 5 minutes as a hobby doing golf. It was a full-time gig. So if you're trying to do that whilst you've got a job that's not bringing in you enough money to save a deposit, it's almost like a recipe for disaster. You're going to get burnout, and you're going to become very, very stressed. And what that causes people to do is seek the next shiny object. Because what you do is you just go, this isn't working. I'm running out of time. I need to go and do something else. This person's buying Bitcoin. This person's buying, what should I look at next? And you go around in this cycle forever and ever and ever. So the way that I teach people is to first of all, just set up your savings for a start. And even if you don't think that you're saving at a rate that's going to get you a deposit on a property, I tell you what it will do. If it covers 3-6 months of your lifestyle costs, right, just having that sitting there will naturally cause you to earn more money, because your mind thinks differently. So I'll give you an example.
Buffer. Yeah.
A buffer. Yeah. So if he was a builder, for instance, which many of your listeners might be, or they might deal with builders. If they had no savings and they're trying to save, and they go and do some work on your house, and then you ring them up and say, look, I'm not happy with some of the stuff. I've just got a snag list. They're desperate to be paid. So if you say, I'm not going to pay you until you've sorted the snags out, if that guy hasn't got any cash cushions, his survival is dependent on you paying them. So he's going to come across quite aggressive and very short. What do you mean you've got snags? And he'll become very, very defensive. Whereas if that builder has 3 to 6 months living costs stashed in the bank, and you ring the same guy up and say, listen, I've got your money, but I just want you to sort out these snags. Completely different attitude. No worries. I'll be around. I want to make sure you're happy. Let's get all this dealt with. Let's sort this out. Because you're not thinking about, I'm going to starve tomorrow.
You don't have
so
a gun
you
to
go
the
around
head.
the house. Yeah. So you go down to the house, you sort it out. Are you all happy now? Is everything okay? Are you sure? And then it's, wow, what an amazing experience working with this builder. You get more clients, you get recommended, whereas the other builder never work in view again. They probably won't even pay you all the money, you know? So it's a completely, people don't think about that kind of income growth because it's almost intangible, but it's there. So if you don't have any money, I always say, look, if you don't have any money and you don't have any savings, it's just like a trading account. Don't put any money in a trading account. Save cash first to cover your lifestyle, right? And then anything extra, start putting towards a skill or another speculation, because a property is a speculation, just like a trading account, right? You are going into whenever you're going into one asset, it's a speculation. If you're going into buying a piece of art or a piece of jewelry or a fine wine, it's a speculation because it's one thing. And the more diversified the assets become, the less of a speculation it is. So it doesn't quite work. If you're putting everything you've saved into the deposit of a house, the whole strategy is jeopardized, in my opinion.
Yeah, because you have that kind of, everything is all on that one investment, and you don't have any fallback. And if you lose your job, you're screwed, because you have to go and try and sell that property to release the equity or whatever it is. Yeah,
and
the buffer is
if
super
you're
important.
Definitely, and if your motivation is to become a landlord, it's even worse, because as it is, I see a lot of landlords make the mistake of not treating their property
Tenants.
like a business, and tenants are your clients. Like I see this whole kind of, I'm the landlord boss kind of thing, and you owe me. That's not how any business works. Everything's about fair exchange, and they're your clients. How about putting a big bow on the door and some champagne and sending them a birthday card and all this kind of stuff? Seems to go out the window with a lot of landlords. If you've just put all your money into that thing, you're going to be aggressive to your tenants.
And in the same way that you would do your due diligence before you buy an investment, you do your due diligence on the tenant as well, and you make sure that you've brought somebody in who has good income and good references and all that, and then you treat them like a king, and you basically make sure that they lavish attention on. We do exactly that with the business park that I run, is that we take care of all of the tenants and make sure that they're not unsatisfied, and it's not a us versus them attitude that you bring to it. You have to have a kind of win-win attitude.
That's a great point. And I think everyone, if everyone could understand that everyone is just looking out for themselves, everyone's asking themselves, what's in this deal for me, then you realize that they've got something that needs fulfilling, and they need a place to live, and they need some nice, they need certain things to make them happy. And your job is there to make sure that they get what they need, so that they give you what you need. And that's the entire game. It really is the entire game. And when we talk about serving people, that's how you go about it. And I always say, like, you have a cash buffer there, and that allows you to think more creatively. How can I be a better employee? How can I help my boss more and take more off of his shoulders? You'll naturally get paid more. And if you don't, you'll be in a position where you can kind of pull some levers a bit more.
Yeah. And you can kind of chart your own course as well if you're in that position, because if you're not happy with the progress that you're making with your boss, then you can say, you know what, I can do this myself or whatever.
Absolutely.
You have options, basically.
So, I mean, I'm always of the opinion that I love serving. Like I wake up every day thinking, what can I build? How can I help people? I'm always asking people what they're struggling with, what's on their mind, because I'm in a space where I've got enough time that I think beyond me. I'm taken care of. So I'm not thinking about paying the bills. And although that's some achievement to get, I'm not saying, I'm very, very grateful to be in the position I'm in, but you don't have to be completely financially free to be in that position. You just have to have a little stash there that keeps your animal brain quiet, that allows this new part of your brain to kind of come alive and be a bit more caring and creative. And as a byproduct of that, you can't not earn more money, because
you're more creative. Yeah,
you're more creative. And I just think I'm a massive believer that the whole world is kind of this balancing mechanism. And I see people go out there, and when you're too generous and you give things away for free, eventually you get recommended so much that people want to, that you can't not get paid more. And if you're out there charging too much and not providing too much value, you'll get humbled, and they'll say that's a rip-off. Don't go to them. Don't get to them, and you'll get less. So the best way is just to come up and be very, very creative, very valuable, provide a service, and charge well for it, and that's it. And you will get paid.
Fair exchange, as you say.
Fair exchange rules the game.
Yeah. Tell me this: influences growing up. Do you have any kind of I don't like the word heroes, but people that kind of influenced you in your journey?
Yeah, the first, actually, when I was at school, I stole a book from the library, and it was The Virgin Way by Richard Branson. And I was always fascinated with Richard Branson, and
Me
I don't
too.
know why. Yeah, I must have been like 13 maybe when I took the book, 14. And I just found the thought of there being someone that well known, because obviously everyone's well known now, right? but you just go on social media and kind of get a load of followers. But right back then it was like a few people, and he had this book, and there was pictures of him creating an airline, and he didn't just have an airline, he had like a record shop, and he had a newspaper in hospital when he was in hospital. And I just found I found that really fascinating, that someone could just go to hospital, start a magazine. And I love that idea, because at the time I'd just done this kind of car wash on our estate, and running the car wash at that point, I realized that actually, if you invest the money that you earn into more buckets and sponges, you can get more friends working for you, and you can actually just not do it, and you just knock on the door, collect the money, go and sell the car washes. That was a massive eye opener for me, and I think seeing that book by Richard Branson just really, I was already in that position where he was like leveraging influence and coming up with ideas. He was in a hospital and he was selling a magazine. I just thought it was really cool. So Richard Branson was one of them. Massive influence on me later on in life is Dr. John DeMartini. He's one of my, the biggest mentors, I would say. Arnold Schwarzenegger, anyone who's really dedicated to a craft, anyone who can anyone to like Tom Cruise, people who go above and beyond for their craft to give the user just unbelievable value and wow factor. I love that quality, and I always think that if you're going to do something, do it really, really well, and otherwise there's no point.
Yeah.
So yeah, those types of people, and then there's obviously many, many more. Ray Dalio, Warren Buffett, Benjamin Graham, all those kind of people that dedicated their lives. Napoleon Hill, literally dedicating your lives to giving the world a message, and I think that's incredible.
You've followed that path yourself. You've become a bit of an influencer in your own right with you have a big social media following and things like that. How did you go about sort of starting that and building it up? Because it does take time, and some people never crack it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I've cracked it by any stretch. I mean, I've nowhere near done as much as I could have, but at the end of the day, I was an electrician, so I'd never spoke on camera. I found myself in this place, as I said earlier, where I had a gift of teaching people how to. I kind of found that I had this way of taking complex strategies and being able to explain them in a way that people would understand, because I was quite stupid at school. I lacked intelligence at school. I failed all my GCSEs. So I kind of
true entrepreneur. Happy. So as I say, the entrepreneurs are tended not to be very academic in school. So
no,
it's proof of it.
Not academic. No, I got an A in art, and that was it. But I
myself.
Right. So where were we?
Well, you were saying that you were scared of the camera, and
yes, scared of the camera. Right. So yeah, I had this message, and I thought, well, if I'm going to have to change, if I'm going to have to change the industry, I'm going to have to start speaking a little bit. And I started looking around at who was good at talking at the time, and I saw, Tony Robbins and a few other people, and then I looked at his coach, who was a guy called Roger Love, who's a vocal coach, and he's like he teach like Destiny's Child and Michael Jackson and Tony Robbins and all these like massive vocalists. And I watched some tips from him, picked up a camera, and I sat there for like 4 hours recording a 3-minute video. And I actually posted this first attempt out on my social media. So if you go to my Instagram, you'll see it. And it's that's only a 4-minute clip, but it went on for like 4 hours of just messing around, changing my shirt because I was sweating. I was honestly, it was horrendous. I'd never spoke to a camera before in my life, and that was like 4 years ago. So what I realized was, after I'd done that and polished it up and edited it to the point where it went out on YouTube, all they see is me smiling and a perfect clip. And I thought to myself, it can only get easier now. So I learned a lot about what didn't work, and then I just realized I've just got to keep doing this, and it can only get better and better. And what I learned from what works is to take on board, listen to people who are questioning things, and use those questions to create more talking points. Because that's what people want to hear about. Don't just put out what you think they want to hear about. Actually ask and go and kind of double down on what they're asking you and the common questions. Consistency, showing up all the time and on time, so that people build trust with you. And also, do not try to please everyone. Just be you and be polarizing to your beliefs and your opinions, because if you're out there being a bit, social media is so noisy now, right? It's so it's so confusing, but also people have got this kind of bullshit meter that is really, really finely attuned, and it's like you need to cut through that. So if you're out there trying to keep everyone happy, hello, it's not going to work. You need to be very polarizing. You need to be very, this is my opinions, this is my views, and then you just want the people that agree with you. Like, this is why I don't get the whole thing with haters and all this kind of stuff and negative comments. Who cares? Like, honestly, I think it's bizarre that people think everyone's going to agree with what you're saying, because as it goes back to the whole balancing, right? There's obviously going to be an opposing opinion to every single thing you say. So why would you expect everyone to? Don't get so hurt about people. Like, who cares? Now, the fact that they've gone out of their way to type in a negative comment, yes, that just says a lot about them. But who cares? So be true to your message. Get 100 people to absolutely, hang on your every word, and then you've got the start of a really good business. And a relationship with 100 people that you can now take on a journey and serve. And it doesn't take. But you start thinking about, you charge £50 a month or £100 a month for some kind of product, and 100 times 100, you start to see where this money is going to start coming from. And then your deposit for your property doesn't take much time.
Great advice. Tell me, Jason, in terms of mindset shifts that you've had over the years, does anything stand out as, you used to think one way, but then, through your journey and your, what you've read and learned about and stuff, does anything kind of stand out as particularly mind shift set, change in direction?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that really, really stick out. One is just a message from my old boss when I was like 19 years old. This guy called George Turnbull, he kind of took me under his wing, and he was one of these guys that had really done everything. He'd been a carpenter, and he'd try his hand at everything, and he'd always done well. He'd always provided and was really excelling in his life. And one day we was having this conversation, and he came out with this quote that was, to be in business, you have to be in business. And at the time, I remember him saying it to me, and I didn't really understand what he meant. And then later on, we was at this job, and I was kind of struggling with something, and I was, thinking about oh, that didn't work, or it didn't go quite how I liked, and I'm going to start. And he said, what happened with that? And I said, I didn't do it because it didn't work. And he said, to be in business, you have to be in business. And what it means is you have to be in business, to stay in business, you just have to keep doing it. You have to just keep like going and making mistakes and learning and growing and expecting failures. And just, if you don't, then you're not, you're just going to sit there and you're not in business. You're going to complain. And that really seems simple, but when you think about it, you see a lot of people who are just, they feel like they've got to be the best from day one, and it stops them from even doing anything. Like there was a kid the other day, he says, oh, it's really difficult to blow up on YouTube in that certain category because, someone else has done it. And you think, what? So you're not going to even bother because you need to blow up. You don't need to blow up. You need 100 people to love you. Like literally, that is it.
It's so true.
That's what you need.
It's like what, I see the amount of young entrepreneurs that start a business, not because of their passion or their idea, but because, they like the lifestyle that they see Mark Zuckerberg has or somebody like, and of course those are 1 in a billion or 1 in 5 billion kind of, situations. And, the likelihood is the business is going to fail, or, you're going to have to do it 2 or 3 times before you get it right. And this assumption, or like, there's YouTubers like Casey Neistat, and like, he's got 12 million followers or whatever. Like the amount of people that achieve that milestone is very, very small. But people, they think that's what the goal has to be, or else I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, but they don't see the consistency and the years before. Everyone started,
and the grind.
The grind, like editing all those videos. I mean, YouTube, don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't really like this term YouTuber anymore. It's like, some people are classified as workaholics, and then there's YouTubers, and all a YouTuber is a workaholic, but they're not a workaholic. All they've done is figured out how to do what they love every minute of the day, which, call it a workaholic if you like, but that's really what everyone wants to do. That is what everyone wants to be in that position. So it's crazy because it's two different labels, but the same thing. And it blows my mind. The other really kind of mind shifting thing was this whole concept of, good and bad. One thing's good, one thing's bad, and really just having this, oh, I mustn't do that, or I must do that, or I should do this, or I shouldn't do that, or that's good, that's bad. And when you realize that actually, everything's just good and bad in someone's eyes, it allows you to be a little bit more poised and kind of proposed as you approach certain situations, because you just understand it from the point of view of them, and you understand it from a point of view of you and all the other alternative point of views there could be towards you. And when you understand that concept, you don't really get too hurt or bogged down, or you don't overthink things, and it allows you to process issues and information pretty quickly, which allows you to move forward. So if someone comes to me and says, oh, this has happened or that has happened, I immediately think, what do we need to do to move forward? What's the next thing? I never go, oh, why has this happened? What's going on? Why me? I don't really get too bogged down in that. And that's because I understand that there isn't really any good and bad. I think everything happens for a reason. And I know that's a bit cliche, but there's always a positive and a negative, and there's always a negative and a positive. And the reason I embrace that so much is because I'm out there in the markets every day with people telling me that, it's a good market, it's a bad market. And I'm just thinking, well, it's not in the middle.
Yeah.
And I like it better in the middle.
I know what you mean. It's actually, I was going to ask you your opinions on property versus, stock trading versus Bitcoin and crypto. There's so many different choices out there, and a lot of people, pin their hopes and dreams on one particular one. And it's something that one of the mistakes I've made in my past is that I was 99.9% invested in the stock in the property market.
Yeah.
And, of course, because of leverage and things like that, that tends to happen. But what are your insights on building a balanced portfolio, I guess?
Okay, yeah. So as I said earlier, like a speculation, I believe you have to earn your right to risk, and I look at everything in terms of speculation and the level of speculation that it is. So, if the way that I like to build, first of all, on property and stocks, the way that I look at property and stocks is for my own personality. I like to invest in things that grow naturally. Okay. And when I say grow naturally, I'm talking about if I invest in Apple and I'm asleep one night and a company comes out like Spotify and they create this amazing service that's like music, a subscription. Whilst I'm sleeping, the best minds in the planet are getting around a table to go, how can we compete with Spotify? And I'm asleep in bed and they're creating this whole product and service to innovate and help people and provide value to people in positive some businesses. And they're creating these products whilst I'm asleep and it's growing. So minds and human beings will innovate and grow. My thing with property is if I was to put too much in property, property's the opposite. So property will always decay and deteriorate, and there's always maintenance, and there's always kind of the roof decaying and the bricks decaying and the fence and the grass and all and the windows and the PVC. So although you can do very, very well in property, again, for me, it is a speculation that you have to work hard at to master the art of and get on top of so that it provides you a return. So many people do well in property, but from my point of view and my strategy, I just like to invest in things that grow without me having to do too much. So the way that that's not to say that I wouldn't invest in property. I'll explain how I do that. But the way that I structure my entire investment portfolio is, first of all, like a pyramid. So I'm thinking of a pyramid, and I'm thinking the lower down the pyramid, the less effort, the less time, the less skill, the less risk is involved. The top of the pyramid, the highest effort, highest skill, and highest leverage, and all the rest of it, the highest speculation. And the more money to be earned, more returns, less returns. So the bottom layer will just be cash, because that will allow me to free up my mind. So having those buffer, living costs there,
yeah,
the buffer, and that what a high interest account, 1% a year maybe if you're lucky. So we've got that. Happy with that. You keep that there and you never touch it. Then I kind of scale into investments in terms of like diversified low risk and passive to very, very active and high speculation and high returns. So the next thing would be like a diversified fund where I'm investing in tiny pieces of hundreds of companies that are the best performing companies in the world that then I can happily put some money into the market knowing that yes, there's a lower return. In my particular performance, it's been 7.5 to 10% on average over the last since I've been investing. So I'm happy to do that. And then once I've got another buffer working for me there, then I'll look at the next level of higher speculation, and that might be individual large cap stocks. So buying a portion of Apple, buying a portion of a stock, and having that work for me. Because by the time I've done that, I've got money working for me down here, money sitting in the bank, and it can't crumble. So it's almost like if that goes to pot, who cares? And it psychologically sets you up for successful investing. And then I might look at medium cap, then small cap, and then I might look at startups, penny stocks or something like that. And then I've got a speculation section of my account, which is really where all of my effort and attention has gone to by building the skill of trading the financial markets. And then there's levels of that as well. So I will allocate via my capital rebalancing so that I've got bottom heavy all the time. So most of it is at the bottom, and then the smallest amount is at the top. And then even the top portion is in categories and allocations as well. So at the top, I could take a small portion of that and chuck it into a complete punt. And by the time I've done that, I don't care about the money. It's like I can take a 20 grand, 25 grand and put it into a Bitcoin, which I did in October 2018 publicly. And then not care what happens. And then and then I can put it into something else or like a hot stock. But that takes a lot of, I've earned a right to that risk. I've got to a position where I can actually do that. But that's right at the end, and people don't see that. They see you got really well done with Bitcoin. What can I invest in? What hot stock tip can I put my money in? And you think
that's where the mistakes are made. Yeah,
you're putting everything you've got into a gamble. That is not a wise idea. So going back to the property thing, property will be in my speculation account. So I will, take some money. I could flip a property, or down in the kind of midsection of my investment account, I'll invest in things like real estate investment trusts, which are almost the same as an index fund, but in property. So some of the senior housing property REITs I've got, and they're doing quite well. And you don't have to actually own the bricks and mortar, which suits me better because I'm not a property person. It's just like me going to a property guy and say, "Oh, you've done well in property. I don't want to do that." And they go, "I wouldn't want to touch Forex, because I'm a property guy."
Well, it's like you say, when you said about Apple and the best minds. I mean, if you don't want to get your hands dirty, then giving your money to a REIT is probably a great thing, because those are the best minds in the property sector, and they have their sleeves rolled right up, and they have specialists in development and specialists in rental and all of that. And so you've got the best minds working on your behalf, and they'll scrape a little bit of a fee off for themselves, of course, but that goes with the territory.
Absolutely. And also, not only are they good minds like running the businesses, but they're people that manage those funds. Like you say, they're monitoring them constantly. And if there's a relegation zone, they just kick out the ones that are not performing and get in the ones that are. And that's a continuous process. Every quarter, every earnings season, the top 500 companies are being analyzed. And if someone isn't performing, they get them out, get the new ones in. So that S&P 500, for instance, is human evolution. That chart is human evolution, in my opinion. And if it ever goes down to a point where, it's really dropping, then we've got more bigger fish to fry than where to put our money. That's literally the planet's ending. That's like goodbye humanity. So, yeah.
And tell me this, it's funny, we were chatting about this at the start. The area of fraud and defrauding and things like that. I noticed that you've had some problems before with people imitating you online, and they've taken your name and your Instagram thing, and they tried to create a clone account or anything. I've had some experiences about that earlier this week, which I'll tell you about. But tell us about your experiences in that regard. You're getting a lot of people imitating you, isn't that right?
Yep. I think that, again, it goes back to people just needing a quick buck, and obviously it's not sustainable, but they have set up, you just type my name into Instagram and you'll see there's probably, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of accounts in my name, and they're essentially contacting people, asking them to invest. They've got all my official website in their bio and everything, so if you click on that, you're going to go through to my actual websites, but them talking to you and contacting you on WhatsApp and things like that, that is that's all scam. And it's unfortunately it's been rife, and I'm currently going through a load of registered trademarks. I'm registered trademark my name. One lucky thing is that I'm actually the only Jason Graystone in the world. There's one other guy in America who's got a Graystone spelt with an E, but I'm the only actual Jason Graystone. So that's really helped me out in my favor of getting a registered trademark against my name. And we're going to be, making some enforcements. But the way that I look on it is, it's not sustainable. And why would you've obviously got a skill, and you're obviously a bit spunky, and you're obviously a bit, entrepreneurial. Why would you put all that energy and effort into creating something that like what I think with property is constantly working against you? You're being chased, you're running away, no one's going to recommend you, so you're churning through customers. People are after you, trying to shut you down. It's not original material, so you're 10 steps behind all the time. So why do that when you could clearly put all of that skill and effort into actually providing a real valuable service for someone, and flip it on its head, where people will recommend you, people will be telling their friends about you, and you'll be growing. So honestly, it blows my mind, because all you'll do is end up, you might earn £500,000, £1 million in the short term, but you'll give it back. And over time, you'll have no more money than the average Joe, because one, you'll end up being humbled by the market and you'll have no clients left. So you'll have no, you might earn £1 million, but over 50 years, you'll have £1 million, right? And plus, then there's all the fines that you're going to have to pay when you get caught. And then you're going to end up just,
it's amazing. It happened, not to me, but somebody imitating me actually scammed a guy recently, and he contacted me through LinkedIn the other day, and he just sort of asked me, can I confirm his investment in this fund? And my name is actually I am a director of a fund here in Dublin. And this guy had, done a search and saw my name and the fund. So he saw, oh, this looks genuine, but he was talking to scammers who were letting on to be me. And he went and he invested $85,000 in the thing. And I hope he has success in recovering that. But I have a feeling the guy is going to get, has just lost it all. And it's just amazing how people, they believe, these stories, and these scammers can be quite convincing. It happened to me when I was living in Spain years ago, and I was trying to I was doing this big project, and I had banking set up with a bank, but the bank had these tough terms that were going to be hard to comply with when the recession started. And so I was looking for alternative finance, and this guy came along and he was working for a Swiss bank, he said. And he told me, okay, I'll invest the money in your business, but only after he had made me jump through all these hoops and do all of this work. And I was producing spreadsheets and cash flow, all this kind of stuff. And then after he told me, okay, I'll invest the money in you, and it was a substantial sum of money. It was in the tens of millions, and he was going to invest this. And the first time I suspected that there might be anything wrong, he asked me to transfer money into a bank account so that he could open, a bank account in the Swiss bank that he had. And I kind of said, yeah, sure, I'll put a couple of grand in for you or whatever. And he goes, oh no, it needs to be €2 million. And that's when the penny dropped, and I realized, this is a scammer. I cannot believe that I've been wasting my time for the last month with this guy.
Wow.
And only because of his greed. If he had said, yeah, 10 grand will do, he would have cleaned me for 10 grand, because I did not suspect the big numbers that we were talking about. It never even occurred to me, 5 grand. Yeah, of course you'd open a bank account,
Yeah.
And so it's just because of his own greed that he actually failed. He was actually going to get me otherwise. So I wanted to kind of bring that story up just as a warning to listeners, because a lot of guys are out there that are saving up their money, and they get kind of hoodwinked, and it happens to the best of us as well. Like, I mean, there's guys out there that are very successful and they've been scammed, So
just don't trust anyone. Like, that it's not hard to Google people now, and I would just say, like, Google people's names. Do some research. If you Google my name, you can look up reviews, what everyone's saying about me. And I often tell people to do that. Don't even take my word for it. And I'm the actual person. Go and actually read up on me before you even do business with me. And there's no real excuse as to get scammed these days. It's very easy to do your research, and please don't. Money is hard to pull out of the economy, and you've worked hard for it. You don't want to be just evaporating it over some no.
Yeah,
but as I say, it will be it's not sustainable doing that. And even if you don't get caught and you don't get and then you have no more clients left, the guilt will get to you eventually, and then that'll be the humbling. You'll feel so guilty that you'll want to give back.
Well, I remember just another story from Spain, believe it or not. My daughter was very friendly. She was in this little local school, and I mean, she was only about 3 or 4, something like that. But her little friend that she had was this other little girl, and the parents lived just a few doors down from us, and so we became quite friendly with them. and they were running a restaurant in the area, and then suddenly they were gone overnight, just disappeared. And all of the staff working in the restaurant were suddenly, they hadn't been paid for the month, and the guy, they did a midnight run, basically got out of town, didn't pay anyone, so they owed all of these staff like a month's wages. And somebody actually stepped in and basically started running the restaurant, so fair play to him. But it turned out, the story, they basically uprooted their lives because they were on the run from the VAT man in the UK, and they had actually done some sort of scam, and they had, basically ripped off their VAT man for so many million or whatever it was. And I think somebody had discovered them and they were about to be found out, so they had to go and get out of town. But imagine uprooting your young daughter who's got like a best friend and all this kind of stuff, and then just like that, because of this decision that you've made, you have got to go out there and do a midnight run.
That is mad. And that kind of goes back to my philosophy of no good and bad. I think if you're ever in a financial crisis, the best way out of it is to serve your way out of a financial crisis. Like, just go and figure out how you can flip and make it work, because there's always ways. The best way out of a financial crisis is to go and serve and serve and serve and serve, and you'll be all right.
It's not about you. Yeah. It's about the other guy.
Yeah.
Tell me this, Jason. I always ask this last question of everyone. What advice would you give to yourself, your 20-year-old self, or your sort of late teenage self, if you had the chance?
The biggest one is just question everything that you hear from people, and don't take advice. So if someone's telling you to do something, the advice, one, if they're older, usually the advice, if it's a peer or a family member, usually the advice is outdated and not relevant anymore. Or two, it suits their values and not yours. So I've seen a lot of people, my whole message is around being who you want to be. And that starts with questioning absolutely everything. And if someone's telling you you should be doing this or you need to be getting onto this, just stop for a moment and think why. And then ask yourself what results it's got for that person, and are they happy in their life? It might be that they're happy in their life, and if they are, then ask yourself, what are their values and what are my values? What do I want out of life? And do I want the same thing? And is that thing going to give me the same result? If the answer is no to that, take the advice with a pinch of salt and go and do your own thing. And it's really as simple as that. If more people just stopped and questioned things, and for, you're telling me advice, but you don't really have the outcome I want or the same values as me, so I'm going to do something different, the world that would be filled with a lot happier people. And, I could reel them off. Get on the property ladder. People get on the property ladder too way before they need to, or they become resentful. And it goes to silly things like your parents telling you to learn in a manual car, because automatic, then you can drive both. Well, there's not going to be manual cars soon. It's irrelevant information just based on what you thought was good, and I've gone along with it. So it cost me more in my driving lessons, and it took me much longer to pass my test. Thanks. Now I'm driving an automatic.
Yeah.
And it's just things like that.
That's exactly the advice that I give my daughters. Learn first in the manual.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. So, and there's nothing like, you can't blame you for doing that, because that's just what your values were.
Program.
And what you thought, good idea. But it's just being able to go, okay, why, why, and really question it, and then connect it with the motive or motivation of that person and see how it fits them, and then see how it fits your mission and what you want out of life. And you'll see some differences, and then you can kind of compare the two and just, here's a novel idea, come up with your own thought on it, because not many people do that. They just hear this and hear that, and then they go, that's the right thing to do. My dogs are barking, sorry.
I see that you've had a delivery. Yeah.
Oh, is there? Yeah. So yeah, I think a real powerful skill is being able to take two bits of information and then create a synthesis and come up with your own conclusion to that, so that you can make informed decisions that are aligned with what you want out of life.
Great.
Rather than going, I took this information, but it's just not working. pissed off. And yeah,
We're trying to
resentment.
just copy some or emulate somebody else that, just because he's successful, but he lives a different type of lifestyle or has different values.
Absolutely. Or societal idealisms. We must save the planet. Well, if you don't feel passionate about saving the planet, then don't pretend that you do. Just go and do something, and then you can focus on saving the planet later when you've got more time and more money.
Yeah. Tell me this, Jason, how can people find you? You've got various things out there, so I just thought I'd let you tell us the best place to find Jason Graystone.
Yeah, I mean, I do some educational videos on my YouTube channel. It's just Jason Graystone. But I normally just refer people to my podcast. So it's called Always Free. It went straight to number 1 on iTunes, which I was really happy with. And if you do go and listen to it, just start at episode 1, because like 1 to 20 is kind of a strategy, if you like, and you'll get more from that podcast if you listen from episode 1.
Brilliant. Good stuff, Jason. Well, look, great talking to you. And
you.
Wish you the best of luck with everything. We'll speak again soon.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Take care.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jason, and plenty of lessons in there to be learned. I'm going to put a lot of links to various things on the show notes. So if you're looking for Jason's YouTube channel, or if you're looking for a link to his podcast or his Instagram, you can find that in the show notes. I've also put a link to his course, and so you can go and check out the course. It's called Tears of Freedom, and that's tears with a T-I-E-R-S. So basically levels, and as he mentioned, he kind of has his wealth kind of organized in a pyramid, and there's sort of tiers, and so the lowest tier, and you go up as you get kind of more expertise. You start to kind of move up into speculation, and I know Jason has made a few quid on crypto and things like that, so some of you guys might be interested in checking some of that out. Just to go back also on the talk about the fraud and the fact that there's people out there letting on to be me scammers. This the company that I'm a member of, called Cashel Fund, just to be clear, it does not have a website. There's no official website for that company. So when you look it up online and you see a website, it's completely fake. What the one that you see, it has an address. It's the correct address. They've gone and got it all correct. It's called a clone website. And if you read down through that, they've even gone and put tweets out like to advice on how to build wealth and stuff. And it's just incredible the lengths that these people go to. And the letter that was sent to this person who lost the money actually was signed by me at the bottom. Now, it wasn't me who signed it, but it was my name at the bottom of the letter, letting on to be the CEO of this fund. So be very careful, guys, out there. I don't want anyone to be losing money. And I know a lot of you are saving up to invest in your first property. And so do be careful with that, because, I know how hard you guys have all worked to put that kind of nest egg together. Right, so that's it, guys. That's the end of this week's episode of Behind the Facade. Thank you so much for listening. You'll find web links, as I mentioned, in the show notes below. My number one ask of you, assuming you found this episode useful, is to share it out to just one friend who you think might benefit or enjoy it. Alternatively, if you're not going to do that, maybe you would leave a review or give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to the podcast. This really helps get the podcast noticed by the algorithm, and it picks it up and it boosts listenership, which obviously is the goal here. If you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover on future episodes, please connect with me via my Facebook group, Behind the Facade Community, which incidentally I'm thinking to change to Behind the Facade Club, because I'll go into that in another day. But as I mentioned, I'm going to be setting up this Clubhouse account, and I'm probably going to create like a club over there so people can come in for the weekly interactive Q&A. And as always, guys, you'll find me on pretty much everywhere in the web under the name Gavin J. Gallagher. Obviously, I've got my YouTube channel, PropTech TV, as well. So that's it, guys. I hope you've had a great week. Remember, if you want to sort of stay up to date on events that are happening, I've got a meetup group now, and our meetup page, or whatever you want to call it. And so you can find more details there. Just go to meetup.com/Gavin J. Gallagher. And That's it, guys. Hope you have a great week, and we'll speak to you next week.